Good evening and welcome to the Mansfield Matters podcast, the show for the fans, by the fans. Why? Because Mansfield always matters. I usually start this podcast in a jolly way by playing an introduction talking about what's coming up in the show, and we are still going to do that, but it would have been remiss of me tonight to not start the podcast by sharing our thoughts and prayers to a family of a Mansfield town legend. Earlier today, the Stags community was rocked and saddened by the news that Kevin Bird had passed away last night at the age of 70. Signing for the Stags in 1972, Bird went on to make 463 appearances in all competitions, scoring 63 goals in 11 seasons. Not bad for a centre-back. Kevin loved Mansfield, and after retiring from professional football, moved back to the area after a short spell at Huddersfield. He lived in Mansfield Woodhouse just down the road, and over the years became friends with pretty much all of us. So tonight, we dedicate the Mansfield Matters podcast to the memory of Kevin Bird. Please feel free, as always, to share your thoughts, your comments throughout tonight's live feed, and at the end of the show, we'll do a proper tribute to Kev. This is the Mansfield Matters podcast.
Six points, 6 goals, 2 wins, 2 clean sheets, and a whole load of happy Mansfield Town fans. If only every week of the season could be like this, eh? First, a smooth sailing Saturday against Old Faces, then a victorious Valentines romp. Steady on, in Carlisle, which leaves Stags fans screaming out for more. But can Clough's men deliver as they head for Tranmere Rovers this weekend? Coming up on the Mansfield Matters podcast tonight, glorious reflections, putting unsung heroes in the spotlight, and only a slight ethical question. As always, we welcome, encourage and invite with loving open arms your questions, comments and opinions in the live feed. This is a crazy little thing called Stags. Roses are red, violets are blue, Mansfield always matters to me and to you. That's enough of the ditties. Let's start the show, shall we?
Hello, good evening and welcome to the Mansfield Matters podcast, where, of course, as I said before we played the intro tonight, we pay tribute to a true Mansfield Town legend in Kevin Bird, who passed away last night, age 70. We send our thoughts and prayers to his wife, Sue, and, of course, the immediate family. We'll do a proper tribute at the end. Feel free to get all your comments in, but we will dive straight into all things Mansfield Town. And talk, of course, about an absolutely brilliant week for the Stags. 6 points, 6 goals, 2 wins, 2 clean sheets. It has been a glorious, glorious week. Saddened, of course, by the news today. But as always, and I'm sure what Kev would have wanted, keep smiling through and talk all things positive about Mansfield Town. So that is exactly what we're going to do this evening. Joining me to talk all things Mansfield Town tonight, let's say hello and good evening to Mr. Clive Parkin. Hello.
Hello, Craig. Hello, everybody.
Have you finally settled on your shirt now?
Yes, third choice.
Excellent. Well, the reason for that is because Cam came on and evening Cam and looked at the shirt that Clive was wearing and said, I'm not wearing the same shirt as Clive. Went off to change your shirt. And then what happened, Cam, when you changed your shirt?
I came back and then Clive came back and we've got the same shirt on again. So I had to change again, but I went with the shirt that I know he's definitely not got. So.
Well, there you go. And the man who, isn't get bothered in changing his shirt because it's all about the man. I'm sure he'll lead a superb tribute at our next home game as well. Alan Wilson, good evening.
Good evening, Craig. Good evening, everybody.
Great to see you as always. Feel free to get involved in the comments and have your say on your team tonight as we talk, all things victories, really. It's been a really good week on the pitch. Let's start, Alan, with Saturday. Old Faces returned to One Course Stadium. Ollie Hawkins, George Lapsley, Alex McDonald, but they all went home empty-handed with a superb Mansfield Town win. It's been a great week, hasn't it, for it to be a Stag on the pitch?
It's been an excellent week, Craig. I mean, hand on heart, I think most Stags fans would have hoped for 4 points out of 6. It'd have been nice for 6, we can all agree, but would have probably hoped and settled for 4. A win on Saturday and then probably a draw at Carlisle. But to get 6 out of 6 and with the 2 performances to boot, it doesn't get much better than that, does it, to be fair?
Let's be honest, Cam, nobody would have gone into Tuesday night's game thinking that Mansfield would be 4-0 up after half an hour.
Oh, no chance. It's a strange one because everyone was thinking like, oh, it's going to be the toughest one out of the run. You look back at the February fixture rundown, you're thinking we've got quite a tough month. We've got a Gillingham side where, a Bradford game that none of us really fancied. You think we just, whatever reason, we don't turn up. Gillingham, they've had a really good turnaround. Carlisle are third and looking a really, really good side. And then there's Tranmere, where we don't particularly travel well to Prenton Park. So to be looking back and thinking, oh, you know what, actually, we've had a relatively decent month so far. I think anybody would have taken, if you'd have said 7 points in the last 3 games, would you have taken it?
Yes.
No, of course you would. It's an absolute no-brainer. I think though, Clive, the proof will be in the pudding come 5 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. If we're to make a real statement and of intent on what we want to do this season, we've got to go and get 3 points at Tranmere for me.
Absolutely, Craig. I said before the Carlisle game that game would be a measure of how much progress Mansfield have actually made since the acquisitions. It wasn't really, because on the night, Carlisle really didn't play. We didn't let them, to be fair, and you can only play what's in front of you. We controlled the game from start to finish, but I don't think it was the test that I was hoping it would be. Having said that, I'll accept the result any day.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
The 200 odd souls that was sat around us in the stand couldn't believe it. We just couldn't believe it. 4 goals, 4 different strikers, all within 32 minutes. It was absolute nonsense.
Yeah, 212, which made the journey up to Carlisle on Tuesday night, Alan. And again, it's one of those where I think it'll be a night to remember for them for a long time to come. And also, I think as well, for those who were watching at home, who no doubt would have been, thinking, wow, what on earth am I seeing here? Everything seemed to go right in our favour, didn't it?
I was sat with the wife, and when the 4th one went in, even Jeanette couldn't believe it. She says, that's 4-0 against Carlisle. I says, nobody more surprised than me. So I was hoping, when they got the first one, I thought, oh, let's continue now, play really well again and, try and sneak another one before half time. But they just kept going through. And then I was looking on the social media at Clive's post where it said 0-4. And there were quite a few followed suit after that. But, it like I said, it doesn't get much better than that. But the proof of the pudding, same as you say, will be at Prenton Park. I wonder if our friend will be there, Craig. It was rather vociferous last time we went there.
Just let me do commentary for one game, just to see him again. I miss
him.
I know.
We did shake his hand after the match, didn't he?
Yeah, he wouldn't have done if we'd have nicked the point, though, would he? Absolutely not. Cam, we've been quite critical. All right, let me rephrase that. I've been quite critical on this podcast this season, which is not gone unnoticed. I've had a few messages and a few comments. You know who you are, and some of them, you need to change your tone a little bit. Anyway, I think it's a good time to highlight how well some players have certainly performed, and none more so than Lucas Akins, who takes a barrage of abuse and has done over the course of his Mansfield Town career. He hit 50 appearances, I believe, on Tuesday night as well. But last season we had no win, no Quinn, and I'm sure Alan will come up with a better title than this, Cam. But this season we seem to have no Akins up top, I can't rhyme, but basically what I'm saying is Akins up top, I don't think we've lost.
Stags won't clock.
There it is. I knew I could rely on Alan Wilson.
No Akins equals no wins.
I preferred Alan.
It's better than what you come up with.
Well, I come up with square root of sod all, so of course it is. It's not hard.
Yeah, it's a strange one, and I'll hold my hands up, and say I've been proved wrong. I've been quite critical of Lucas, especially this season as well. And I think it was more the fact that it was just everything that seemed to be going wrong at the club at that point just seemed to be boiling down to little mistakes that he made on the pitch, and none more so than Everton away in the Papa John's Trophy. And I know it's only the Papa John's Trophy, but it's still the point of that was his third or fourth mistake in consecutive games, and it cost us wins and points. And the frustration just boils over. But he's one of these players that needs the confidence, and he's a fantastic player when he's got it. And it just seems that whatever he's doing at the moment, everything he touches turns to gold. He's fantastic to watch at the moment. And it's just it's frustrating because he needs to perform like it all the time, and he hasn't this season. But the last few weeks, the last few months, he's been very impressive, and just hope this really good run of form does continue, because he works hard, no doubt about it. But he's now seeing the fruits of what he's been doing and what he's been working towards.
And it may only be a 2-game-old partnership, Clive, but him and Davis Keeler-Dunn seem to have struck a real partnership.
Yeah, but just going back to the justifiable criticism of his mistakes recently, before this time, I mean, he got a mistake in him like every other player has. But is it only a coincidence that he plays well when he's played in the right position? And mistakes at the front end of the pitch, which are going to happen, don't have the same devastation normally as they do when you are playing as a defender. And then throw into that, at the time he was making those mistakes, and you mentioned the one at Everton, our back line was not as good as it needed to be. And so anything that he cocked up on, they weren't the best people to deal with it. And I think the situation is completely different now. I think we have this confidence in our more resolute defence. Akins is being encouraged to play the sort of game I think he's best equipped to do. And you're right, Craig, there's a new partnership starting to bear fruit. I don't think we've seen the best of DKD yet, but I think he's going to be a real start for us.
Yeah, he certainly looks like a real handful. Staying with Akins for just a minute, Alan. Sarah says, Akins up top, Mansfield won't stop. I like that. That's a good one indeed.
Well done, Sarah.
But go into that sort of thing. Is it, has Mansfield's fortunes come through Akins going up top and getting a little bit of confidence, or has it come elsewhere on the pitch? I certainly think that there are X amount of areas which you can highlight, but certainly having an Akins playing with confidence. I think now, after what he's been here, a year and a bit now, we are starting to see the Akins which Burton fans raved about.
It might have been, it's like similar to what you've said, just about 2 minutes ago. It might be other matters, influencing where he plays and how he plays, i.e. passing the ball, Ollie Clark, George Marius, it could be a number of things. But when you play him in his correct position, he is an absolute handful, and he'll give you 110%, whether the ball bounces off him sometimes or not. He's still running and giving 100% at the end of every game when he's playing. And I think, like we said, if you play him up front, that's his best position. He's proved that because they couldn't handle him on Tuesday night. And, like other matches we've seen the evidence, it's clear for all to see. They just can't handle him because he's a big powerhouse, and he shields that ball up. And now you've got DKD running off him like you would have either Swanee or whoever else plays up there, from time to time. It can only bode well, I think.
Cam, would you, with the Akins situation, would you be tempted to go one more and add another into that mix? You look at how Davis Keeler-Dunn has performed. He drives the ball a little bit like Rhys Oates did when he was in the prime of his form before his injury, of course. He's got a lot of pace. He's got a lot of power. He gets into wide areas. Would you be tempted to go one more and put Swan or even, the Mr. Johnson playing off of him as well and really go for the throttle? I'll give my reasons why I don't think the latter will happen later on. But would you be tempted to go one more and try and solidify your place in the playoffs and even galvanise yourself to climb up the table a little bit more?
I think it depends on who we're playing, because there will be teams that we come up against where we can overload them up the top end of the field and it'll work well. There's other teams where we can't overload them up top because we need stability and to be solidified in the midfield. Thank you. You broke it. There we go.
Not being used to
Put me off now. But yeah, it just depends on who we're playing. I think why change something that's not broken is why I'm very frustrated about the whole Pim Flinders situation, because it's very much on the thing of why change it if it's working well. And I know Craig's dying to jump in on that one, so go on then.
Well, no, Stags. I was going to come on to it anyway because Stags Chat in the comments have asked who would you have in goal, Pim or Flinders, and for me, it's not a question of who I would have in goal, Pim or Flinders, because I think both are two equally good goalkeepers. You know, Pim came in on Tuesday, and to be fair to him, came back in as the number one and had a decent game, made a good save when we needed him to make a good save. We were coasting at, I think it was 3 or 4, it might have been 4 at the time, and they got through towards the end of the first half and were 1-on-1. And I said to Clive at the time, if they score before half time, it would be a completely different second half. We won't coast this game because they'll have a chink of light. And he made the save that he needed to make. He came and caught a few crosses. He parried one away and was generally okay. The issue is not Pim versus Flinders. The issue is the way in which Nigel Clough has dealt with it. It's a difficult situation because there could well be a clause in the contract of Christy Pym, because of course, let's not forget, he's not ours. He is on loan to us from Peterborough United. So there could well be a clause, like there was with certain players, certain midfielders last season when they came on loan, that they have to play. And if that's the case, then so be it. But come out and be a little bit more transparent with it is all I'm saying. Because from the outside, you've got Scott Flinders, who has had 3 superb games and kept the clean sheet that he thoroughly deserved against Gillingham, and then he gets dropped. He has 3 superb games and gets dropped for no reason other than the other goalkeepers back available. And I just don't think that sends a very clear message to any player that's on the fringes who may not be in Clough's first 11 or first choice 11 or however you want to phrase it. I just don't think it sends a very good message. And I think, Clive, it's that issue, isn't it? We were discussing it before the game outside in the fan zone when we saw the team news that it just doesn't make for good man management, in our opinion, as supporters.
No, we felt it doesn't do anything positive from a motivational point of view to Flinders to know in advance that unless Pim's injured or suspended, he's no chance of playing. Now, he may well understand that. It may well have been an agreement, and so be it. But as you say, the only people that know that are people that aren't telling us. My view is very simple. You don't change a winning team, and you don't change someone who's playing well. And Flinders came in through circumstance, and he acquitted himself very, very well. And I wouldn't have changed that for Carlisle on Tuesday night, especially as Pim's coming back from an injured finger. Now, I understand he's still wearing some form of lightweight splint. Well, why? You've got to want to do it enough to take a chance on him, and obviously they did, and it worked out. And as I share your view, we're lucky to have 2 really good keepers in this division.
Alan, it's not a question, is it, of ability, because you would happily play either of them. In fact, sometimes you'd wish that you could play both or give them 45 minutes apiece because they are 2 equally good shot stoppers. The issue is, the way it's been handled by Nigel Clough. His comments, just be a little bit more transparent with it. I think that's all we as supporters expect as a minimum, isn't it? As you would in any walk of life.
I think I can remember somewhere a while ago when I think it was Flinders gave an interview, and he did intimate in his interview, I feel sure he did, that he knows that he came in as number 2. Now, what Clive's just said might make a little bit of sense in, on Tuesday, Pim did come back in, although, have a splint on his finger. But be fair to Pim, like we said yesterday, he had a really good game. There was one cross that he came for and missed. But apart from that, he played really well. And I think Flinders might understand that he's second in the pecking order. But that's not to say that we don't think, he should have carried on playing. Because like Cam said, why change a winning team? Well, sometimes you have to. And who'd have thought Barry would have come in with Maris being injured? It just
absolutely.
Horses for courses, isn't it? And it's same as Wallace with the Akins situation. Akins has been berated. There's not a lot of people, apart from yourself, think Wallace ought to be in the team regular, but is proving otherwise. Is proving a very good stand-in for Macca.
Yeah, we'll come on to Wallace in just a minute. Let's just round off the Pim versus Flinders situation. Is it unfair, Cam, to ask the question or to answer the question, who would you have in goal, Pim or Flinders? Because I don't think I would actually genuinely give an answer. I think it would. There's a lot of factors for me. Each have their weaknesses, each have their strengths.
Yeah, it'd be a very technical answer, as in Pim. Flinders is a better shot stopper and a bit more commanding. And Pim is probably a better kicker of the ball, and maybe his handling's a little bit better. And it's very nitpicky stuff that not really just like if you're looking on the surface, is it you're just thinking like who's the better keeper? Well, actually, they're both just as good as each other. I think there's a couple of saves that Flinders made at Bradford that maybe Pim wouldn't have done. The more just like the getting down and closing or down. But then you think back to Doncaster early in the season, Pim pulled off that worldie. I don't think Flinders is capable of doing that personally, because he's a bigger guy. He's not quite as nimble. So you've got aspects of both. So I think it'd be harsh to say who's a better keeper. And I think managers are always going to have their favourite, regardless of what position it is or whoever. And quite clearly, Akins is Clough's number one favourite. But it's just one of them things in football. You've got your 11 that you like to have. If you've got a fully fit team, you've got an 11 that you like to be able to have, like to be able to play, because they can play how you want and they know that they're capable of getting results. That's what it boils down to, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not a question of ability, because we've seen Flinders have bad games as well. I'm thinking back to the EFL Trophy earlier this season when he was rusty and didn't have a great game. The difficulty is at the minute, it's like the Akins situation. If Akins got dropped on Saturday, everyone would be going, "What you dropped Akins for? His best striker we've got." Because
think back 3 months.
We judge things in the moment. As football fans, 90% of us have this one-directional tunnel vision of judging things purely based on the last few results.
I was just butting in before. Sorry, Clive, before you talk. I was going to say to Craig and them, all 4 of us here, if everybody's fit, I bet our 11s wouldn't be exactly the same.
100%.
Yeah, and this is it's because, like you say, football. It's all about our ideas and what we think, not what.
You're missing a piece. He's looking for his piece of paper now.
Yeah, I don't know where it's gone. I think I might have binned it. Anyway, that's when I was messing around with camera 3. Right, let's talk here. Let's talk. Come on to Wallace in a minute. I want to just reflect a little bit on the second half at Carlisle. But I also don't want to come across as being negative, because I don't mean it to sound that way. If we'd have played like we played in the second half at 0-0, I think we'd have been sat here and having a very different conversation.
Yeah.
And I think a big reason of that, Clive, we sort of said it, didn't we, after the game, is Ollie Clark was taken off at half time. And when Ollie Clark's not on the pitch in that midfield, it makes a world of difference. And as Sarah said, 1 for Clark. No Clark, no Bark.
Yeah, that'll do. I think Clough said something like, I didn't bring Johnson on because we didn't need the goals. Well, I'm going to take issue with that. I think when you've got a team on the rack, you keep going. when we were 4-0 up at Scunthorpe, weren't we, when the season they got relegated? And we just eased back. And in the end, 2 or 3 goals more in our locker would have put us in a different situation. And you don't need to just look at the Stags for that. If you look at what happened with Bristol Rovers, they, in a very strange way, scored 7 goals against the very same team in the last game of the season. No one could have predicted that. It was completely out of the blue. But what did it achieve? They got promoted. And, Northampton were the victims of that because goal difference matters. And our goal difference isn't very good at the moment. It's getting better. But, it could be vital when we get to the vinegar stroke towards the end of the season that whether we've got goal difference positive or not. We've got, we've got some teams around us that have got a few more goals in the pot than we have. So I would, on Tuesday night, I was disappointed. Didn't use the opportunity to put Johnson and Swan on because I thought that would have really tested their team. It would have stopped them attacking because they'd been too busy chasing our attackers. But,
negative comment from Craig. Negative comment from Craig alert. If ever there was proof that Danny Johnson's not going to play for Mansfield, it was not bringing him on at half-time at Carlisle. Carry on, Cam.
I can see both sides of the argument.
Can I just say, by the way, I have finished.
Okay. I can see both sides of the argument, but I personally sway more on the side of Nigel Clough's theory, possibly on the second half, by the virtue that we've taken players off and certain players, more specifically because we need to save legs because it is a long way, and they worked very hard in the first half. But
I'm going to have to interrupt you because if it was about saving legs, he should have taken Lucas off because he was running on fumes, and that would have been a perfectly acceptable thing to do.
Aikens can play a full 90. Ollie Clark can't.
No, but he doesn't. He
Kieran
shouldn't
Wallace
need to. He should, no, we were 4-0.
I know.
What if just someone had gone through him in the 90th minute and injured him and puts him out for 6 weeks?
Well,
he's struggling with injuries. There's no point in play.
Yeah,
take him off. He's earned the rest.
Yeah, well, exactly.
It's such a frustrating thing because I agree with what you said about agreeing with Clough's theory to a degree. We had to make sure that we protected them coming out because they were going to come out in the second half. And like I said earlier, if they got that goal before half time, it would have been a different second half. But you could have done that and still gone for the jugular by bringing on 2 players who clearly need some minutes and are desperate to impress in Swan and Johnson, and taken off Keeler Dunn, who was absolutely knackered, by the way, by the 55th minute, and Lucas Aikens, who's been our best player for the last 2 or 3 games, to protect him. There was no need to keep them on. Sometimes you can get the balance by making the changes anyway. I don't know. Shut up, Craig.
The theory behind it's right, but personnel choice.
It's all opinions, isn't it? I mean, it sounds churlish to be critical when we've comprehensively beaten the team in 3rd position. Against all expectation, we turned them over good style, and there was never a period apart from that worrying that it was running up to half time that if they scored, it would change the complexion. There was never any fear of us not coming back with the points after we'd scored those goals in the first half hour. But that, my view, and I'm not a professional football manager, that was the circumstance. You could have let the game in the second half run for 10, 15 minutes and then gone to chase a few more goals. They did bring Swan on, and Swan nearly scored a 5th as it happened. It could have had 2 in reality. So I'm not being uber critical. I just think that there's a circumstance when you can choose to bring a couple of strikers on, and that was one of them.
Basically, what we're saying is we wanted our cake and to eat it on Tuesday night. We wanted everything on Tuesday. That's what we're saying.
Valentine's cake.
Absolutely. Let's turn it back to something a little bit more positive. Martin's mentioned it in the comments, and that's Alfie Kilgore, Alan, who again has been absolutely tremendous since he's come in. He's certainly revitalised that back 3. And when we were talking about having the personnel to play this system effectively, that's exactly what we've got now. And isn't it? It's fantastic to be sitting here saying that, and we've still got players to come back in to that. But Alfie Kilgore is a huge part in that. He marshals that back 3 well. He's had Riley Harbottle come back in the last couple of games or so alongside him. James Perch, the elder statesman, as well. that is a really good. It's shaping up to be really good, and he's a big part of that because he's a threat in both boxes.
When I saw him come on for that last 20 minutes, and I saw him make that, it went to last ditch tackle, but you knew he was there. You know what I mean?
Who's Lash Dick?
Last ditch.
He's the new foreign player we're signing in the summer.
I said there and then, I says future England, future Mansfield captain, and I likened him to George Foster last week, and I haven't changed my opinion. That bloke will be immense for Mansfield Town.
A proper player in my opinion.
Yes.
It's not ambiguous. You know exactly what you get with him.
You know what I love the most about these players that we have brought in, though? What are they?
2 of them haven't been injured.
No, permanent. Every signing that we made in this January transfer window has been permanent.
And they're all at a decent age.
Yeah, we've got 3 players on loan at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
Craig's trying to figure this one out.
No, I am, yeah.
The keeper and the 2 knots lads.
No, you're right.
Yeah, Pym, Harbottle and Swan. And fair enough, 2 of those are crucial. And I think Harbottle, when he's fully fit, he's a fantastic player, but he complements what we've got well. But then you think Keeler Dunn, Johnson, obviously out injured, but fantastic player. And then Kilgore. And then we've brought in, not for the sake of bringing in for once, we've actually brought in quality that does complement us. And obviously Clough was chasing Keeler Dunn when he left Oldham. Obviously he went to Burton to further his career, because obviously it was League One, so it made sense to go there. Obviously things haven't worked out, so the option is you've had less than 6 months at Burton. The offer's coming from Mansfield, play regular football, and on Tuesday night, he's got 2 assists and won a penalty. On Saturday, he got an assist. So he's done everything you want. And then Kilgore, you really can't complain about him. I think Clough summed it up perfectly. He's not one of these defenders that's like pound the chest. He's very, very technical whilst also being very strong. And he's able to read the game well. And it just fills me with confidence, because you think alongside someone like Perch, who's maybe obviously on the tail, sort of like the rear end of his career, you want someone solid next to him where they can play off each other. And then you've got Harbottle on the other side, and they just all complement each other very well. And you throw Elliot Hewitt into that mix, and then Stephen McLaughlin when he's fit. That is one hell of a defensive unit that we've now got. And we've always said the defensive unit has always been the most questionable part of our squads over the last few years.
Can I say something controversial?
Go on then.
Again, we've been better without Stephen McLaughlin.
I agree.
He's been off it, but when he plays like we know he can, it changes it. So,
Kieran Wallace is by no means, a wing back. He's doing a superb job in that position. But if you play the right players in front of him, he doesn't need to be. He can be that defensive style player and allow, the likes of the midfield with Stephen Quinn and Ollie Clark, George Maris, whoever it deems to be, to go in there. And the thing you've got with Wallace as well is, he's been playing fullback for a few games. Tuesday night, George Maris is unavailable. He slots into that defensive midfield role in the centre of that 3. Jordan Bowery comes in at left wing back and has a decent game. And Wallace again is pivotal to everything. He gets so much stick, and he's not a 90-minute player. Kieran Wallace, by no means. After 65, 70, he's definitely struggling. And I think Nigel Clough has said, after 70 minutes, he has to come off because he literally cannot do any more, Alan. But he is, for me, the squad player of the season. And I think he's been as pivotal as Alfie Kilgore and Davis Keeler-Dunn in the last few games.
I'm just saying he's done well whenever he's come on. He's had his moments, and it's not. Sometimes he does, it's a rash tackle or he loses his head, but so does Ollie Clark in that respect when he first comes on. But when he's playing in his position, like you've said, I thought Jordan Bowery was immense on Tuesday night. I mean, a lot of people would have given other players the plaudits, but I thought Bowery had a really, really good game. and that helped Wallace, because he was in that position.
Yeah.
Wallace took the place of Maris, and when he was spraying his 30-yard balls out to the left to Quinn and whoever else, it must be confidence for that lad as well, to know, oh, I'll play against team again tonight. So
you've got to ask the question though, Alan, haven't you, that when Lewis Reed is fit and Maris is available, where does Wallace sit then?
Yeah, well, he'll
back
be
at left wing
on the bench, but it is a
back
Craig
at left
said,
wing
it's
back.
a squad player. And
I'm with Craig. I'm with Craig here. You make him a left wing back and allow a certain other Irish fellow to go.
No, I don't agree.
I don't agree that we should let McLaughlin go, but I certainly agree that once Lewis Reed is back available, or Maris is back available, whoever, Kieran Wallace is the first choice replacement to subsidise for Stephen McLaughlin. And Jordan Barry's a suitable player. He's good to bring on in those last 30 minutes because he's a threat. He gets forward. He's physically as a threat. But in terms of how we're playing at the minute and the success we've had, Kieran Wallace all day long for me goes. He's in that starting 11. You find a place for him.
A fit. Don't get me wrong. A fit Macca would be on my team sheet in the first 11, without doubt.
A fit Macca lasts about 2 games.
No, I don't agree. I don't agree, because why did he get all the plaudits last season then, Craig? When he wasn't injured.
Oh, I'm not. Oh, it's Clive who's arguing at me. Other side of the screen, mate, that way. That way.
This game is about opinions, in my opinion. Is nothing.
Exactly.
Macca is a bit of a luxury now. And I'd also say, I think Oates has had his day with us. I think come the end of this season, there'll be some big decisions to take there. Because I think he's accident prone. I think he's not as fit or as good as he was before he had his first abdominal or chest damage, whatever it was, pectoral damage. So I think, these players come and go. There's a window of opportunity. And I think we are now heading down a slightly different trajectory through circumstance, through players being injured, like Oates being injured. And I just don't think we have the concerns about the dependency we once seemed to have on him.
Yeah, everybody's got their own opinion, but I certainly don't agree with Macca. Macca would be in my 11 to start with, no problem at all.
I'd still find a place for Kieran Wallace, even with Macca in there.
You'd find somewhere for him, but it would be a place for Macca.
I play him in goal.
Can we all agree that we'll keep Hewitt?
Oh, of course. That's a no-brainer, isn't it? We're not starting that one again, are we? Jesus Christ.
How many times have I said on here that if Maris plays well, Mansfield play well? And it's the same with Ollie Clark.
Yeah, I think, we've probably glossed over the Ollie Clark thing a little bit, Cam. Obviously, Nathan's not here to say, it's my reverse psychology which is making him play well. But, Ollie Clark gets forward, he gets on the ball. He's a commanding captain when he needs to be. Really drives that midfield. And we did miss him on Tuesday night when he went off in that second half. And I do worry that when Clark's not involved, we do lack a spark in that midfield. I think Clark, as much as anyone, has got to take credit for the results in the last 2 games. Again, good areas in both, 2 very good goals. And when Ollie Clark hits a ball, Cam, it stays bloody hit.
Yeah.
Oh, it does. You think back to Saturday, it took a nick on its way through, but it skims off the post and it's beat the keeper all ends up. And you probably say, as a keeper, what's the one golden rule? You don't get beaten at your near post. And it's very impressive from Clark, because it's something that we've maybe not quite seen. Was just like, obviously, the first year that he was with us, but I just think that for whatever reason, that first bit of the COVID season, we just didn't hit form, and it was just poor to watch Mansfield. And obviously, Clough's come in and he's a very different player. But we think to the end of last season, you think everyone was asking, is Clark actually going to be a Mansfield player comes the start of the season on the first day at Salford?
It might be the confidence of the new contract as well, as daft as it sounds.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of everything. I think he just needed the confidence. But I think the most important thing is he needs to stay fit.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing. And he's had this problem with his knee for the last few weeks. And when he's been playing, he's been fantastic. But when he's not played, you've noticed that he's not playing. Yeah. He's not been fit. I think Alan said about a couple of weeks ago in the not senior cup, he just didn't look interested. I suppose it's one of them. He doesn't want to put 100% in because he's wanting to be back in the team soon. So, and playing first teamers in that game was never about winning that game. It was to get them minutes. So swings and roundabouts. But Ollie Clark, he's that player that you need, that engine player to run your midfield. And who have we got that can do that? That's not him. Who can replace him? Because I can't think of anybody that can do that.
John Joe O'Toole. Let's talk about him.
Go on.
A few weeks ago, it seemed like he'd be going out the door because he was, basically said that by Clough that people looking at him and Kellen Gordon. Kellen Gordon, of course, went on deadline day to Crawley. John Joe O'Toole, there was no move for him. He didn't play in the Not Senior Cup game, which you alluded to, because there may have been a potential move there. He's come off the bench in the last couple of games and sat in midfield. So obviously there's been a kiss and make up sort of job there or whatever, or he's just patiently waited for his chance, however you want to interpret it. But he's done superbly well in there. And let's not forget, he is a midfielder by trade. He's not a centre-half, Alan. And, Cam was saying there about if Clark's not there to drive it, is there a replacement there? Yes, there is. People have spoken about, the midfield's a little bit short at the minute. You're missing Lewis Reed, you're missing Anthony Hartigan. Hiram Boateng's not really hitting
Hartigan. We're not missing Anthony Hartigan.
I know, but you know what I mean with the point. We're not, you know what I mean? You've got other players missing in that area and you're sort of down to the bare bones, but we've still got players who are comfortable in creating a competitive midfield. Wallace goes and sits in there and someone else goes in at fullback. O'Toole comes and sits in there. Law comes in and gets some minutes. We're not short at all. And I actually disagree with Cam. I think we have got enough players to drive that midfield if they were given the opportunity for minutes. And one of them, the leading contender, is John Joe O'Toole.
I can understand what you both say, but I think Cam, in my opinion, Cam is correct in saying there's nobody quite like Ollie Clark because he drives us forward. He's got the pace with him, where I don't think O'Toole has. O'Toole's more of a defensive midfielder, but he's also, to be fair to O'Toole, he's got a goal in him. He can score goals, as he's proved in his career. So give the lad a chance because I don't think he'll ever let you down.
No, I don't. I think he's a good club man, O'Toole. I think he's a loyal person, regardless of whether or not he's getting minutes or not. Let's turn our attention then to the next game. Obviously, Tranmere. We'll do predictions in a minute. But before we do that, we've played 30 games this season. We're in a good position again. In fact, points-wise, I believe we're on exactly the same point as where we were this time last season.
Same points,
Exactly.
same win. Everything's the same except the goal difference.
We are a place higher, I believe, than where we were last year. I think we were 6 at this point last season. But we've got to maintain it, haven't we? Last season we got into this position by having that constant fluidity of results, and we had that momentum which was carrying us, and it was building up for a long time since November. This season, in my personal opinion, that momentum has not been there. We've sort of clung on a little bit into that position and bobbed in and out of the playoffs. This is a real time this weekend, Alan, isn't it? To go, and if you can get a point against Tranmere, great. But if you can get all 3, that does stand you in real good stead to really start to pull away. Because if you look at that league table at the moment, very tight in there. Northampton above us on 52 points. Salford beneath us, equal goal difference. We're above them on goals scored at the moment. They're on 49 points. We've scored 47. They've scored 41. Stockport then in 7th on 48 points. Just outside the playoffs, Bradford on 48. Then Doncaster in 9th on 46. They've had an upturn in form. Sutton United, always there or abouts, it seems. 44 points on the board. Swindon in 11th with 42. Tranmere then in 12th on 41. So it's still very tight in and around there, Alan. But this weekend and even next weekend as well at home to Salford, the team just below us, it's a real big couple of games coming up still, isn't it?
It is. Out of the next 3 games, obviously the Carlisle one, the Tranmere one, and did you say Salford, the last one? I would have hoped for at least 7 points out of 9. I mean, 9 would be absolutely fantastic, but 7 points out of the 9, I think that's what we'd definitely be looking at. And I think this year also, we don't have to worry about that. I know we've got one game in hand on Carlisle, but last year we had quite a few games in hand, didn't we? And I've always said, give me the team with the points on the board.
Well,
Because let the others chase you. Let the others chase you.
Those games in hand last year yielded us 0 points.
And that's what I mean. That's my point. You know, we don't have to worry about that at the moment this year. And just watch this space for Stockport. They seem to be putting a run together, don't they? And they could be one of them that, slowly creep up.
If you look at last year's table, sorry to interrupt you, Craig, but if you look at last year's table, there was teams that finished up very successful. There was Port Vale and Bristol Rovers, and they hadn't shown at that point.
No.
So anything can happen. And I think the difference this year is that we started this year with some points. We were earning from the start. Last year, we had that horrible first third of the season when we couldn't do anything. So in actual fact, our current form hasn't got us into this parity position. It's the fact we didn't have such an awful start as we did last year. The good news in all this is I think we've turned the corner a little bit in terms of performance and ability to carve out results. And going back to your original idea that 7 out of 9 would have been a good return, everybody would agree, I think, on that. The fact is we've now beaten, against all expectations, Carlisle comfortably away from home. Takes the pressure off a little bit. We're not the points return at Tranmere is not quite so essential as it might have been. And if you take the pressure off, you perform better.
I think it's less about the points return at Tranmere, Cam. I think it's more about now finding the momentum. Like Clive said, we did pick up points early doors this season and sort of put ourselves in that position, in that holding position to be up there. But at this stage of the campaign now, we've found our way of playing. We've tried to play this way all season. We finally found it after the January transfer window. We've got players who are performing well. We've got players to come back in and add to that in a few weeks' time, which is absolutely great. But now it's about gaining that momentum. Like Clive said, Port Vale, Bristol Rovers, they were underneath the sort of the frame of people's mind of the top three thinking or the playoffs thinking at this stage. But momentum got them there. We've got to find that momentum now and that consistency of results. We can't have now taken 3 steps forward to now go and take 4 back. And I think that's the most important thing for me, Cam, come Saturday afternoon at Tranmere.
Yeah, it is. And you think if we do win, then, currently we're the second most formed team in the league over 6 games. So you think back to January and we had a bit of a blip in form and the performances weren't quite there. And we were all starting to question, were we actually going to be able to achieve anything this season? You bring the players in that we have, and it's a completely different picture less than a month later. And like you keep saying, if we are going to be serious about doing something this season, then Saturday is going to be a massive game. It's another one that you think we probably should be winning. You've got to think we've got to go into these games with every bit of confidence. I think the only one that maybe we were thinking might be a little bit difficult over the last few games or so was Carlisle. The fact that we've got to travel there on a Tuesday night. If it's a Saturday, it's probably a completely different picture. We're a little bit more confident. But the fact that we've gone there on a Tuesday night and put 4 on the board at half time, and that's given us the confidence to go and see out the game. But it's all important that these last few games where we've had a good start to the game, scoring goals early, and you think Doncaster scoring very early, and it set us good stead.
But the most important thing, Cam, from the last couple of games has been clean sheets. Yes. 2 back-to-back games with clean sheets. That is a turning point in my world, and I think that's Cloughism as well. Clough wants clean sheets, and we've struggled to do that all season, and much of last season as well. So if Kilgore and the new shape back 4 or 3 in the middle and 2 wing backs, whatever he chooses, is as good as it's been in the last couple of games for the rest of this season, it puts us in a very, very powerful position going forward.
Yeah, it really does. And on that subject, it's time to turn our attentions to podcast predictions and see where we get with all things Tranmere. First of all, though, we'll start with the up-to-date podcast predictions league table where there are yet more twists in the turns. If you think it's tight in League 2, well, it's tight in podcast predictions as well. We've currently got 4 people vying it out for second place in the overall table, and 3 of the Mansfield Matters crew are all battling it out for that number 1 spot in our little league as well. So, annoyingly, both me and Cam are actually outside the top 10 of the overall table at the moment.
Free Cam.
Cam is in 12th on 26 points. I'm in 11th on 27. Then it's Kiwi Stag and JS both on 31. Adam Crump, David Shetlife and Roger King all then on 32. And then in second place, Clive Parkin, Alan Wilson, Nathan Edge and Kathy Holmes.
Go, Kathy, go.
All on 34 points. Steve Naden, the current leader of the pack, on 35.
Wow.
In the Mansfield Matters group, Alan Wilson, Nathan Edge and Clive Parkin all lead the way on 34. I'm then in second/4th, depending on how you look at it, on 27. Cam in 5th or 3rd, depending on how you look at it, with 26. And then Nick, of course, who started late, who will be back with us, by the way, in a couple of weeks' time once he's got internet secured in his new gaff, on 12 points. Well,
can I ask where my dad is?
Is it working?
I don't know.
He's watching, I think.
He is in 19th place on.
Yes.
No, is he? No, hang on.
Oh,
wrong Nick.
Don't jump about too soon, Cam.
No, I was looking. I apologise profoundly to your dad. I was looking at the wrong Nick. Your dad is breathing down your neck, as he should be. On 24 points, he is in 14th place, so just 2 points behind you at this point in the proceedings. And with that, I'm going to start with Cam. Try me a prediction, please.
I'm going to say 2-0 win.
Goal time?
15th minute.
Going to then come to Clive. You're up next.
Well, I'm not going to predict a 4-0 half-time result scoreline. I think this is going to be tougher, but I still think we'll win. I'm going to go for the classic 2-1 win, and I think it'll be midway through the first half. So I'm going to say 23 minutes.
Alan?
Also, 2-1 win, 40.
I am going to go for... I think that we're in for another classic encounter. I'm going to go for a 3-2 win. Have that, people who say I'm negative. And we're going to score the first goal the first goal will come in the 6th minute. 6. We'll get Nathan's, we'll get Nick's later in the week as well, and we'll put them onto our socials if we get them in time. Don't forget, if you want to get involved with podcast predictions, the link that you need is in the description. And you must do so no later than 1 hour and 1 minute before kick-off on Saturday afternoon for your prediction to count. Predictions in the chat will not count. That's all we've got time for in terms of Mansfield chat tonight. Really appreciate your comments and you getting involved as always. We will be back with another podcast on Tuesday night. However, we do have a little bit of Mansfield Matters related news for Tuesday night. Cam.
What about me? What have I done? Usually it's not.
I was expecting you to say it, but it just proved my point that you weren't listening. Get off those naughty websites and start paying attention.
I'd say I'm talking to friends, but all you're just going to do is turn around and say I've not got any friends. So anyway,
we're all here. We're all here.
Don't you include me in this?
True.
Oh man. So yeah, Craig's handing over the reins for a bit, which would have been tonight as well, but I didn't want to take that responsibility for the next part. So Craig's doing this. So from Tuesday onwards for a little bit until Craig's work life settles down, basically. His new job and all that. He's busy, man. He's busy.
Yeah, so Yeah, so basically what it is, Tuesday there will be a Mansfield Matters podcast, but it will be Craigless apart from the intro and outro, where I will be still doing those. And I'll also pop up in podcast predictions as well with a little pre-recorded video, but I'm unavailable all of next week. So I'm handing the reins over to Cam. I nearly missed out last week, of course, when I got back late. And Cam did a superb job in standing in. So please do support him on Tuesday and, enjoy the chat, enjoy the responsibility, and hopefully I'll be back with you the following week. But I can't confirm that yet because I don't know what my work schedule is. So next Tuesday will be the Mansfield Matters podcast, 7:30 as always, via all the usual places.
Ish.
Cam at the helm. God help us all. Right, let's move on by paying tribute tonight to Kevin Bird. If you missed it at the start of the show, Mansfield community was absolutely rocked and saddened today when we heard the news that last night, age 70, the Stags legend Kevin Bird sadly passed away. Signed in 1972, he went on to make 463 appearances in all competitions, scoring a whopping 63 goals in 11 seasons. Not bad for a centre-half. He's an absolute club legend who won both the 4th and 3rd division in the glorious spell of the mid-1970s and had a bar at the ground named after him in 2009. The Kevin Bird Suite opened in 2009 in his name. He left the Stags and in 1988 and went to sign for Huddersfield, where he played just the once before returning back to the Mansfield area and settling down with his wife Sue and, of course, his family, and played locally for a number of local amateur teams and various bits and bobs, and have always combined his Saturday afternoons with coming to watch the Stags down the years. And earlier today, Alan, when we all saw that news, well, it just showed, didn't it? You went on social media and there wasn't one post which didn't send condolences to Sue and the family. It just showed the absolute mark of the man, which was Kevin Bird. Now, me and Cam could sit here and we could, regale stories, which I'm sure we will, about when we met him a few years ago. But you and Clive, you got to see the good bits. You got to see him with the Stag shirt on the pitch. So it feels only right for you two to share your tributes first.
Well, can I start? I mean, Kevin and I are contemporaries age-wise, and his latter years have been troubled with dementia, and it's one of those things that you can do very little to prevent, and it's so sad. And it's the word legend is used too freely, in my opinion, but in terms of Mansfield players, he is truly a legend. And if fairness is anything to go by, the Quarry Lane stand ought to be named after him going forward, in my opinion. But, players come and players go. He was a local boy that did well for us. He certainly epitomised hard but fair. And, he's lived all his life in and around Mansfield Woodhouse. And of course, our hearts go out to Sue and the girls because they're left behind. But he owes this club nothing. And don't forget, he played at a time when players didn't get paid very much money at all. And we had some real success while he was a key member of the team. And I'm really saddened he's gone. Rest in peace.
Alan.
One story, because Kevin when I used to come and undo my box about 1 o'clock, Kev used to come and stand at the side of me and we'd chat about football, various things, going on to one another things. And the one story always that I remember fondly, he said, I can't understand why. And when they came out doing all the training and whatever, the little 5-a-sides that they do, he says, I can never understand why they do that. In my day, you didn't do that. He says, I used to sit in a cold ice bath. This is what Kevin said. I used to sit in a cold ice bath, and at 10 to 3, it'd either be Johnny Miller or Terry Eccles, Ray Clark, whoever. Right, Kev, time to get out, get your kit on, and we're on. And that was it. That was Kevin. It was hard as nails, but fair. And like I said on my post on social media, I will always remember that 6'2", eyes are blue, Kevin Bird is after you. He's not 6'2". but he's sent like that. He was a colossus.
And his eyes were brown. Go on.
Probably. But it's very sad news. You know, he was a legend, and God rest in peace, Kevin. All best wishes and everything. Condolences to his family, and fly high.
Yeah, and of course, you know, we never got to watch him play, Cam, but we've seen video footage from down the years, and we were, you know, truly honoured a few years ago when we did Legends Live, way after his diagnosis with Alzheimer's 10 years ago now. But we were privileged that him and Sue came along to that night. And, you know, we also had the privilege of walking from Chesterfield to Mansfield with him a few years ago on the walk which Nathan organised for guide dogs. And he always had a smile on his face, didn't he? And you could just see, Cam, couldn't you, his true love for Mansfield Town.
Yeah. And I had the pleasure of meeting him before this as well. The Kevin Bird charity match a few years prior to, I think it was actually was the summer of the season before we did the charity walk, and I was able to take part in that. It was something like £15,000 raised with the Once Upon a Smile celeb football team, and being able to take part in that, and then doing the charity walk, Legends Live 1, Legends Live 2, and then all the different bits and bobs, the trips down memory lane, and all the different things to raise money and to raise awareness for Alzheimer's Society, and just everything to do with that, and raise awareness of Kev, and then other professionals that are the ex-professionals that are now living with it, and we've sadly lost two. And it is so sad when we do lose one, because it's another one where you think there can be so much more done, and these millions of pounds raised year upon year to do research, and there are more steps being taken by the FA to help mitigate the factors of heading a ball, not being able to head a ball from it's under 11s now. You're not allowed to head a ball. So there are steps to be taken, and maybe these steps should have been taken sooner. Maybe the research should have been started sooner, should things have been done sooner. But it's still very sad when you do lose one, and especially when it's somebody that's so close to your heart because of things that you've done previously, and a man that's, if you'd have cut him in half, he'd have bled amber and blue. And
yeah,
even in his years after being diagnosed 10 years ago, he was still coming to games, and you think just how quickly, sort of like when it did start to take hold, and when he did become very unwell, it was so sudden. And you think pre-COVID, he was still coming to games on the regular, and then it just seems to have been, ever since the COVID season, it's hit him like a train, and he's not been able to go to games. But yeah, it's just so sad to lose him, and rest in peace, Kev.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, a few years ago, you know, we mentioned in there about a trip down memory lane. That series that we started here on Mansfield Matters years ago, I think it must be, well, it will be 5 years ago now. It was after the first series. We did, because of Kev, we chose the Alzheimer's Society as our charity because of Kevin Bird. And I'll always remember it, it'll live long with me, this. We were going to do an episode where we spoke to Kevin. Nathan, who sadly isn't with us tonight, I'm sure would have shared this story as well, approached Sue. He's known Sue and Kev for years. He's been to games with them over the years, and things like that. And we said we'd give the episode a try, and we were invited round to their house. And within 2 minutes of us, me and Nathan being there, we sort of said, as Kev went into the kitchen to fetch, ironically, his stag shirt off the wall, we're going to turn the cameras and the microphones off, because it didn't warrant doing an episode. We felt it was the right thing to do to not record those stories. We sat and we spoke to Sue at length about how the challenges that she faced with living with somebody who was living with dementia, and we really wanted to do that series justice. We did Legends Live at the end, which raised money, which all went to the Alzheimer's Society, which we'll be forever proud of. We've got a link in the description to this episode. If anyone wants to donate to the Alzheimer's Society, then please feel free to do so. And those episodes of A Trip Down Memory Lane are still freely available as well if you search on your podcast apps. And he spoke so passionately about his time at Mansfield. He showed us his shirt a number of times, because every time we went back out of the room, he'd forgotten that he'd shown it us, which was a really, really sad thing. And when we left the house, me and Nathan sat in the car and we shed a tear between us about how it was, because it's difficult for anybody that's living with someone who's living with dementia, and the help that's out there is nowhere near as good as what it should be. So hopefully any money that's raised to the Alzheimer's Society can go and make that happen. And I remember I was also working at football in the community at the time, and we ran a group which still runs proudly on a Friday morning called Active Minds. And when we first started that was all about dementia patients, and every single person with dementia is different. It takes a number of different forms, and it's just so sad to see how it's affected them. There was one particular gentleman who would ask me what my name was and what job I did every single week. I'd known him for a year, and even after a year, he would still ask me week in, week out. But football connected them, and every time that Kev went to watch Mansfield play, you saw some light go back in his eyes. And you know what? Like you guys have said tonight, there'll be numerous tributes which go out on social media, and let's hope that the Stags can do him justice on Saturday afternoon away at Tranmere. And I'm sure there won't be a dry eye in the house at the Salford game when Alan delivers a poignant tribute to Kevin, no doubt, before the game. And I'm sure Alan himself will struggle to get through without his voice croaking up. Now, usually at the end of this podcast, we play a nice, jolly, joking outro. We're not going to do that tonight. We're going to leave you with this image. We're going to leave you in a period of reflection as we remember a true Mansfield great, Kevin Bird, who passed away last night, aged 70. He goes down in the club record books, 5th in the Football League appearances for the club, 12th in the goal scoring charts. A true Mansfield man who, like Cam said earlier, if you opened him up, would bleed amber and blue. Tonight, we dedicate the Mansfield Matters podcast to his memory. We send our thoughts, prayers and best wishes to Sue and to the immediate family. Rest in peace, Kevin Bird, 1952 to 2023. Kevin Bird, a man for whom Mansfield always mattered. Sleep well, Kev. Good night.